tennis, the excellence, and raise the bar for women's tennis, and then in Serena's case to go through birthing a child, and the difficulties that she had to return, and then return to that championship level. It just take different parts of their career. I don't know where you. I love the Nike commercial, with them as as Serena as a young girl, and her dad, and just the way that he coached her, clearly dreaming big at that time, because he saw something in her, and I think of resilience. I think of excellence. I think of just when I talk about a Diana Taurasi will to win, the ones that are considered, we use this GOAT thing, entirely too much for my liking, because you can't have all these greatest of all time. So, that by definition, that means just one. So I think that, certainly in that category of the greatest of all time, and probably should be labeled so. And that's male or female. I know that there's been, that kind of discussion as well, that, you can't include her in the, all of tennis, but it's just in women's tennis. I think she should be included in all of tennis.
Two things that have bugged me about Serena's summer. One was when officials, I can't remember if it was the U.S. Open or a different tournament, told her she basically couldn't wear what she wanted to wear. And I just think it's a horrible look for people in power, especially when they're white males, to tell women what to wear. I mean, how insufferable is that?
Yeah, and that's part of the culture of tennis. And so I think you get what you accept. And until women band together and say, you're not going to tell us what we can wear or have to wear, I think you can have guidelines. If tennis, has a certain look, but you can't mandate, in my opinion, you should not mandate, as you said, from that position of power, what women should wear. And but until we stand up and say, we're not okay with that, then men will continue to do those things. And we just have so much work to do everywhere you turn. But I think it's about, the idea that we can and should use our voices and stand up. And say, but until that happens and you have rules on the books, then we have to abide by those rules.
One more thing I want to get to on Serena, that we're going to talk about a couple other topics, maybe some Muppets. Let Cheryl tell us a little bit more about her trip. I do want to thank and welcome Bite Squad as our newest sponsor on the Talk North Podcast Network. Bite Squad delivers food from hundreds of Twin Cities restaurants. Order online at bitesquad.com or download their app and get food to your door in minutes. And for a limited time, they are offering free delivery to our listeners on the first order by using the code TALKNORTH. Bite Squad, food for your mood delivered. And if you really want to make the network happy and Michael Russo happy, you can order Delano's Pizza and their other menu items at bitesquad.com. We do appreciate our listeners and our listeners' generosity. We hope to be seeing a lot of you again soon. To break it down, the Serena thing, to take it from the global to the specific, what drove me crazy was, I know tennis writers, and they say that the coach's warning that the umpire made, those players can't hear that. They're in the middle of a very loud arena. Noise is reverberating. It's bouncing. She didn't even know she got the first warning. And so, to make that time, at a crucial moment of the championship match, to pick that time to kind of try to discipline a coach, that's not what you do. You do that earlier in the tournament. You find a way to not have it come down to happening at that moment. And then if you're going to warn somebody, you got to make sure they know they're warned. So exactly. I bet Serena would not have broken her racket if she had known she didn't have a what am I looking at, the word I'm looking for? A violation. Well,
the next, it would escalate. So she obviously, right. The escalation and penalty, like you said, if she'd known, but I think at the root of it is communication, and obviously poorly done by the chair umpire, and the two individuals that came out to do what, I don't know. I guess maybe it was like the parent coming out to hear exactly what happened on each side, and then they just walked away and did absolutely nothing. But it was, just all of it was really unfortunate. Now, so speaking of breaking a racket, we had a chance to stay. We were over in Nice, France, before we came here to Tenerife. It's been a really tough trip, Jim.
Yeah, it sounds brutal.
So we were in the French Riviera, but the place that we stayed at was actually Serena's coach's tennis academy.
Oh, wow.
It was the French Riviera Beachcomber Hotel that we were able to have lodging at. And so I got to see a couple of the framed broken rackets. And it brought me back to my time in high school playing tennis. But her rackets, even the broken rackets, look so perfect. It looks so championship level. So really neat to be in that environment. I love tennis. I want to play again. It kind of got me motivated. They had clay courts, they had grass courts. It was unbelievable training facility that sort of like kind of like a boarding school for tennis, where that you go and you stay there and you get the teachings and the trainings. And I think it costs about $80,000 a year to do that. So, but we were in that environment, and just interesting the timing as we talk about this.
Where do you keep your broken rackets?
Well, mine aren't broken. Mine are finely curved. And I had to, as I used my racket, I had to understand now where the ball should hit to reach because of the curve and the curvature. So only I could use that racket, and I can only use it in a certain direction. So, but anyway, those are in my garage, and I'm gonna have to break them out again and get back to it. Tennis is a great game, and as everyone says, it's something you can do, well into your I guess middle-aged life, and even then some beyond.
Yeah, my wife and I have talked about taking up tennis ourselves. Next topic.
Sport.
Yeah, next topic. I'm going to give you a choice which way to go. You want to talk about Muppets or Kaepernick?
Wow.
Or both.
I like both topics.
Okay.
Well, the Muppet one's really quick.
Yeah.
The Bert and Ernie. I don't know. The fact that it was reported by TMZ, I think I got a bigger kick out of than anything. That's where I first saw it. I just thought that was hilarious.
Well, the cool thing was TMZ caught him at the airport. And kind of ambushed them.
So no one is safe anymore. Bert and Ernie. And I guess what comes to mind, I think for most people is duh. I think that was not something that I didn't think people knew already, and just kind of I guess maybe interesting timing, whatever. But maybe that Sesame Street is looking for maybe ratings or something. They kind of gave them something to talk about with regard to Sesame Street. But I think it's great. Representation, as we talk about, always matters, and especially when you talk about being in so many homes, being on TV. That is so important, and that we acknowledge that now, I think, is even more important because I think that when I don't love the word normalize, but when you normalize things and you don't, these things are not talked about anymore, it's going to be because we did things like this, Bert and Ernie, as gay characters or gay Muppets on Sesame Street. It just when you start looking around now and you start to go, yeah, I mean, there's. This is part of society. We're all people, and we have some gay people, we have some heterosexual people, we have bi people, we have trans people, we have everything, and everything is okay. And I think the more that we, again, I use the word normalize, that it's better for everyone, and it's certainly, I think, if you think about young people, that when you think about the suicide rate of young gay people. Maybe this helps to that end as well, that you grow up knowing that it's okay.
I'm trying to think of a different word or a better word than normalize. I'm usually not in favor of taking nouns and making them into verbs. That goes against my writer's instincts, but maybe mainstream. I don't know.
Yeah, and I don't love normal because it's to suggest
right.
that it's not normal. So maybe one of our listeners can come forward with a better word for us.
Absolutely. Yeah. Email me. Email me, jsouhan47@gmail.com. Kaepernick, I find it fascinating that, the voices against Kaepernick have been so loud and often have based their opinions on misunderstanding. They want to assume that he's insulting the flag, that he's insulting military veterans, and that the flag represents only military veterans, which is all, to me, crazy land. And now you see Nike stock is setting a record, and Nike evaluation is setting a record. And we finally had an NFL owner break from the pack, the new Panthers owner, say, hey, I want my players to be able to express themselves, which is the NBA and WNBA model. NBA and WNBA players stand for the anthem because they know they can express themselves any way they want elsewhere.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. I'm really proud of our league. I think, again, you go back to communication. I think when you compare the leagues, you compare the NFL and you compare, say, the WNBA/NBA, the two leaders of the separate leagues, and Adam Silver, versus, good all that. The way in which you do it, when you stand in your ivory tower in a position of power and you tell largely black athletes how they should think or what should they think or why they should think it, that's a losing proposition. I think that, people are empowered today to use their voices and stand up for themselves in ways that we did not in the past. I can't imagine, living in the 50s and 60s as a woman, being told I had, that I didn't have certain rights. Have lived a long time as a gay individual that I don't have certain rights. In Minnesota, when Minnesota's united and we learned all the rights that we didn't have and how important it was for us to have marriage equality so that we can have those same rights as heterosexual couples. It's the same thing, for, how many years, for people of color to be held down in a variety of ways. And so here you have Colin Kaepernick, who, however many years now it's been, that he's bringing attention to the idea that maybe the flag isn't the same to people of color as it is to white people or non-people of color. And it's rooted in education. That's the thing I love about Colin Kaepernick. It's rooted in education about what the national anthem, the words and the original, and what it meant. And he's standing up and saying, why are we doing this? Well, we have to stand up for. And so it's not just about the instances of racial profiling or police officer involved shootings of black teens or black men. It's there's just so much. It encompasses so much, and I think he has been very thoughtful in his approach. Like I said, rooted in education. And when the first time that he sat instead of stood for the anthem, and it got the attention, and a service member contacted him and said, please don't sit. Let's talk about this. And they had a discussion between two people. Kaepernick got to express his views, and the service member expressed his views, and they came up with a solution. And that solution was that in fallen members, to honor them, you kneel. So please, if you don't want to stand, please kneel. And so then he knelt. And then now that's obviously going on to be. Did I lose you?
I think we still have you.
I'm sorry. And so that's considered to be, disrespectful. And the bottom line is, I saw something funny on Twitter that, the white male being oppressed now, they're feeling oppressed. I got a big kick out of that. And it's like, no, we're not trying to really oppress anyone. We're trying to eliminate oppression of all. And so I think that what Colin Kaepernick is doing, and now what Nike is doing, is basically saying that giving a voice to these things has merit. It's rooted in education, and it needs to be talked about. And we need to do better. You see police in communities wanting to engage better, more. You see the work that I thought that Mayor Hodges did in the city of Minneapolis and trying to bring sides together. But there's a faction that is at odds with this. And they see, whether that's the Ann Coulter types that, they feel under siege, and it's really not about taking away anyone else's rights. It's about giving rights to all. And it's to acknowledge that we have a problem, and how do we communicate effectively to resolve these problems, because black families are losing their children. And that's a difficult thing, and it needs to be it needs to come to an end.
Well, and I saw Black Klansman the other day with my wife, and it's about racism, and at the end, I don't want to spoil for anybody, but I'll just say at the end, Spike Lee, if anybody missed the point of the movie, he reiterates strongly the point of the movie, and there is a scene from Charlottesville where Nazis are marching with their tiki torches, and they are chanting, "We will not be replaced." And that's the mentality we're dealing with. People who have been in power feel like they're their status is at risk, and they feel like they are entitled